What is up, everybody? We're back with emergency breaking news. The shit has hit the fan once again. Look, this isn't turning into a political channel, but I am one that does like politics, right? That is known. And as I've been covering, there's a lot of stuff happening within the DOD that I want to cover. Just as a military person, trying to really kind of keep the politics out of it as much as I can. And today I have a guest. Today's guest, I don't know if you want to use your full name there.
No, it's fine, man. I'm gonna try to stay out of trouble. I'm gonna try to keep myself out of trouble. I am still active duty. A CWO4, an IP officer, an IT officer. Kelvin Jackson. I won't say where I'm stationed, so my CO doesn't get calls. But yeah, so still in active duty CWO4.
Wait, Kelvin, tilt your camera up just a little bit so we get a little bit more of your forehead. There we go. All right.
Oh my.
So
okay. All right.
Yeah. You good right there, brother. So, me and Kelvin, we go way back to our 2008, 10 days back on the road. So he's been on the show before, talking about this subject before. Okay, if y'all remember, it was like a good 2 years ago. We had a big table full of a lot of people, a lot of diversity at that table at that time. Right? And we're talking about diversity things in the military, what we've experienced, what we've seen, how we go about it, because at that time it was a hot button topic, and it will continue to be. And so the breaking news that we're going to cover and we're going to talk about today, and again, we're both active duty. We both know the rules. We're not going to get too political, but we're going to state some things about how the changes make us feel as active duty service members, right? Because I think it's a good discussion, okay? We know each other well enough, and I got some other people that might jump in here with the interview. I don't think nothing is going to be said that's going to change how we feel about each other, right? And I hope you're all out there having these conversations in your space or something can keep it like that too, okay? The overall mission and the safety of each other out there at sea and everywhere else is way more important than any of the bullshit going on in DC, where all those fuckers don't know you, for some part really don't even care because they're so far removed. Okay, they care that the mission's getting done, but they don't know Seaman Timmy or Seaman Sally out on the deck plate that's making it happen. Okay, so all that being said, the breaking news last night, it was getting the scuttlebutt, as we like to say in the Navy, was out that the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Air Force General Brown, okay, I believe that's his name, right? I don't got nothing pulled up. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, right? And Admiral Franchetti, a lot of people say Franchetti, it's not, okay? I lived in Sicily. CH makes a k sound, okay? So Admiral Franchetti, I'm particular about that. I want to put respect on her name, okay? Was also fired. Now, Kelvin, I know you feel a lot of ways. I'm going to come out the gate and say this. General Brown, don't know enough about him. Again, like, bottom line is he's going to be okay to me, right? Was it probably politically motivated? Probably somewhere in there, and we're going to get into why those things might have come up. But, you know, I always look at it like this. Like, they serve at the will and pleasure of the commander-in-chief. So he gets the right or wrong, whatever you feel about it, to dismiss them when he thinks that they're not serving. So Brown, I really have no opinion on, like no real angst either way about it. Franchetti, I think we missed the mark on that, and we'll get more into that. Kevin, why don't you just go ahead and like, are you? I think you're both. You're both against both of those firings.
Yeah, so let me say, I always believed that service in the military was above politics. I've always believed that the merit of your work should be what promotes you and gets you into some of these positions. Let's be very clear. Both of these leaders, officers have ridiculously exceptional records. And they are both, this is just facts, and I'm just going to speak facts. We had prior to inauguration, we had 7 members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when you include the chairman, which was General Brown, when you include the vice chairman, and when you include the Coast Guard. Coast Guard is not always included, but when you include the Coast Guard, we had 7 members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. 3 of them were minorities. 3 of them have been fired. All three of the Joint Chiefs of Staff members that have been fired were the minorities.
So let me jump
would
in.
well,
Go ahead.
well, let me say this. I am going to reserve judgment because I have been told, I've seen SECDEF's message the other day that there's going to be transparency, and he is going to come out and explain these firings. I absolutely look forward to that because right now, being honest, the optics look bad.
Right.
The optics look bad when you have 7 Joint Chiefs of Staff members, 3 of them minorities, 3 of them fired. All 3 of the members that were fired are the minorities. The optics look bad. So that's the tough part. That's the tough part. Again, just like you, I do not know General Brown. I have met our previous CNO. I will not even try to butcher her last name out of respect to her. But I met her. I'm not going to say I have some extensive background with her, but everything I've heard, everything I've seen, she seemed to be an exceptional leader who cared about sailors, who cared about the mission, who cared about making our job a little bit easier. And this is, again, as we mentioned, scuttlebutt from people who have worked with her. This is the 10-minute conversation I had with her at the command that I'm serving at now. She seemed to be very engaging, very concerned, and a remarkable career. And again, giving her flowers, the first female CNO, the first female member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a historical member to be kind of unceremoniously fired is concerning. And I'll leave it at is concerning.
So, couple things, right? First is the Coast Guard one. A lot of people bring up the Coast Guard. I don't know what they call Commandant. Is she Commandant? I think.
Yeah, she's Commandant of the Coast Guard.
Right. So a lot of people don't know the whole scandal that revolved around that, or the operation, or it was Operation, I think they called it, or the fouled anchor.
Yeah.
Right. So I would implore people to go look into that. From my understanding, what I read, and if you've read it, please let me know what I'm missing here. She withheld information that involved sexual misconducts throughout the Coast Guard. Right. So people bring her up and kind of try to throw it in at this is not blaming, but like as you did. But like I think there's more substance there with that, right? Than what we may have with Joint Chief General Brown and Admiral Franchetti. What do you think about that?
Let me say this. I am sure they all have their own stories. Obviously, that one happened literally, I think, soon as Trump was inaugurated. So that one, yes, I believe there was more to that. I'm only combining that firing with this one to include the fact that we had 7 chairmen and 3 of them were minorities. They may all on their own have their own stories and their own justification. In fact, I assume they do. Like I said, I'm only speaking of the optics of the fact that prior to the inauguration, we had 3 members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that were minorities. And today, right now, and again, let me also say, I know there's a nominee for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We can talk about later. But we don't know who's gonna take those other service chief positions. But right now we went from 3 minorities to no minority chairman members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
So my question though again is I hope again before that all happened earlier in the afternoon, SECDEF came out and said there will be transparency, and I think that is great. I don't think anyone should be saying anything negative about that, right? His 2-minute little, reel or whatever he put out.
Video, yeah.
I don't think there's any way we can spin that to be negative. And if you are, I'd wager that it's strictly political for you and you're not looking at it through a military lens at all, right? You voted the other way, you're not a fan, whatever it is, right? But do we not as a military, as the Department of Defense owe that transparency?
Yeah, let me say this. This is where I can say, obviously, like most people, you have an initial reaction. I have an initial reaction. I
Yeah,
have an initial thought. I have initial beliefs. I have initial concerns. However, what I will do is give the grace, give the opportunity for the SECDEF to come out and explain these. The optics look one way, and I'm assuming he knows that, which is why he preempted that with the video. He
yeah,
knew the optics were going to look a certain way.
yeah,
I will allow the opportunity for him to speak about why, and again, obviously this will be about the chairman and the CNO, but why those firings happened. Again, especially when we talk about two officers that were, and I am not in the Air Force, so this is where talking about General Brown becomes a little bit
hmm,
harder. But
yeah,
everything I've seen from airmen, from people who are seem to be a very well liked member of the Air Force. Again, I say the same thing about our CNO. I have not heard a single person say a bad thing about her that has
right,
actually had the opportunity to work with her or talk with her.
yeah.
So, I, but I'm
It
also
did,
not. I'm also not in Washington. I'm not privy to all the things that maybe the SecDef or the president are. That I'll be honest on that.
so
I
for
look forward to hearing the
yeah,
transparency, right? So
yes.
I appreciate the preemptive message. I look forward to seeing the actual transparency where we explain why these two firings happened.
Are you holding your phone?
I am.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
is it
okay,
weird?
yeah.
Hold on,
No.
let me try to put. Is that better?
Yeah, yeah, that's better. That's better because
Okay.
we animated in here and his shit's not showing.
You're right. You're
But
right. My
all good,
bad.
all good, all good. So I think it is safe to say that many feel, or they're in DC, the people that are making these choices, a lot of it's being linked to DEI. You've watched my other videos on that stuff, okay? We've had some of
Yep.
those conversations. Again, when the other episode you were on, I said it 2 years ago. I don't think we should have any special months for anyone across the board, and that's what has happened. So maybe I willed that into existence. I don't know. Maybe the almighty Bravo Zulu or something, right? But that
The
aside,
SecDef
check it
was
out now. Huh?
SecDef was watching your videos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess I guess so, right? You need to subscribe and like. You do it too while you're watching right now. Um, but you know, I how to say? I want to articulate as smartly as I can. As I've said in the previous videos, if there was no DEI, then there would be nothing to get rid of. But as you've seen and everything, there's instructions canceled. There's something in everything. There's some little bit or whatever it was of DEI in the military, whether it's just words that needed to be removed, but the instruction still stands, and the premise of it, right, and the content is still there, but they had to get rid of the word, perhaps, inclusion, right? So they had to cancel the instructions, strike out all inclusions, and it's 99% still the same, okay? That's something that, across the board, you saw a lot of people, they did away with Simeo. Simeo never was done away with. Your local instruction
Yeah.
was updated to get rid of words that fell under a DEI umbrella, quote unquote, whatever you want to believe or not, right? And that's what's been updated. But Simeo is still alive and well, right? So
Well,
that
let me say this
go ahead.
regarding if these were, and I'm gonna try to carefully use these words here. If these firings were attached to these two leaders pushing or promoting DEI, where my concern is, and in defense of them,
Yeah.
you have to understand that they came into office under a different regime. So if I
Yes.
came in under a regime where DEI was, again, we are all subjects to, we all take the oath saying, I will obey the orders of the president and the officers appointed over me.
Yes.
If I
Absolutely.
am the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the president at the time, and again, last regime,
Mm-hmm.
was pushing DEI, or DEI was something that was being required to push to the military. I think it'd be a little unfair to then hold that against him because I came in under a different regime and I was serving at the honor of the president.
Yes.
I was taking the orders at that time. I was fulfilling orders. I would only really accept it. I'm not going to say I would only really accept it again. I am going to leave room for grace
Yeah.
for the SECDEF, but I think it would only really make sense if it was something that happened since inauguration. Hey,
Right.
inauguration happened, and you did not take
All
heed
the
to
yes.
to these orders.
Yes.
If it's something from last presidential regime, that's a little tough, like I said,
Yeah.
because hey, I work for the president.
I completely agree with you there, right? Although I think we have different stances on some of the things, I think that is
Yes.
absolutely fair. Okay. That being said, I don't think we can call General Brown a DEI hire because he was
No,
appointed to the Joint Chiefs by President Trump in his first term, right?
well,
So,
pause.
right? Okay.
I don't think it matters who appointed him. I
Yeah.
don't think we can call him a DEI hire because this man has a remarkable career, 40 years of
Right.
service. So who?
I say that because that is what a lot of news headlines and a lot of the, if you want to use misinformation, disinformation from legacy media, whatever words you want to use, right? That's a lot of what's getting pushed, and that's a lot of what you see out on the web sphere of junior sailors, or whoever shit posting and this and that, right? And I agree with you. Okay, I want like they were. I do. I don't want I think when we're relying on the conversation to be that, oh, just because of female and color or sex and color and stuff, if that's our only argument, then we're doing a disservice to their service, right? They have
Right.
40 years of great service. That is what we should be honed in and focused on, of like, again, back to the transparency thing. What was it military performance wise that they were not
Yes.
accomplishing? And again, if it was during the last regime, like you don't give them some time to get on board. But if there was meetings had that we will never know about, where they came out and
Right.
said, yeah, that's not going to happen from January 20th until now, then there that is, right? And we'll never know, right? Unless one of them writes a book or comes out all of a sudden in a month to try to be
Right.
like, nope, we had a meeting with them and I told them, fuck you. And they are, nope, fuck you. You're going to be fine. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to know that stuff, right,
Right.
Kelvin? So
Right.
again, I bring it up only because I don't think that should be the focus. That is the focus of what a lot of media is trying to push. And again, I've said this before. I hate that shit because that is, when we're paying attention to media, that is what is driving the divide between people. That's what's driving the divide between service members now, is too many clickbaity articles that no one reads that really has little to no context in it.
Substance. Yeah.
Right? The substance. Thank you. You're much smarter than me. And we can't just put one and one together, and it's raw emotion, and everyone hates the other person, right? So, I don't think he was a DEI hire. I don't think you'd call him one. I don't think it's driven. So I'll say this: do we think that part of General Brown's firing would, after he was the Joint Chief, or not Joint Chief, but the head of the Air Force,
Chairman. Oh, got you.
Chairman, thank you, of the Air Force, and he started making appearances and talking about race things during the George Floyd riot / protests, protests during the day, riot at night. Do we think that maybe lended to some of the animosity and rollover to where we're at now? Is him kind of coming
Yeah.
out and saying these things?
Yeah, absolutely. One, this was mentioned in SECDEF's book that he wrote prior to taking the
Right.
position. And let me clarify this. The president, the secretary of defense, absolutely have the right to, all of those positions in the Joint Chiefs of Staff are appointed by those two people. They have the right to say, hey, I want to clear. So nothing they are doing is illegal. Nothing that they are doing it is just an opinion piece. It is just, hey, how do we feel? How do we believe? So do they have the right to say, and like I said, where I think my concern is more is the optics. So yes, one, Hexef called General Brown and he didn't call him a DEI hire. He called him somebody who pushes DEI philosophies. Somebody who was very connected to, as you mentioned, the George Floyd thing. Was very connected to DEI initiatives, let me say. And I think that is what ultimately this firing is going to be attributed to. I don't know as much in terms of the CNO, her actually pushing DEI initiatives. So I'm a little anxious to hear the justification for that firing. But that's, like I said, the optics still are very concerning.
Yes, and again, I think we get wrapped around optics, and I think that's where we want the transparency, right?
Right.
As any sailor at any command of anything, right? When your CO my CO was relieved just last fall, right? And people wanted transparency. We didn't get none, right? You get the scuttlebutt, you get people who were talking about, well, this is what they talked to me about, like things like that. But outside of that, you don't ever really get a hard stamp. No, this is exactly what happened, right?
Right.
So part of it is like we'll never know, but I hope we do. I hope that something. But here's the other thing, like, what for you, right? Because again, me, I'm just kind of a shrug my shoulders, like, okay, they're fired, like next thing, right?
Right.
And although I want the transparency for you, is there anything that SECDEF could say or mention about their performance or otherwise that would make you say, I get it, I understand that why they're let go?
If it was we had new initiatives,
Yeah.
we had a conversation, and these are the people that did not get on board, then
Okay.
yes, then yes.
Okay.
Right? I don't necessarily have to agree with initiatives. A new regime gets, just like a new CO gets to
Yep.
create new policies.
Yep.
But if they did not get on board, then I can respect it. Hey, these are not the people, because again, as you become the president, as you become the head of a service like the Department of Defense, I would say anybody, if I was going to be the Secretary of Defense, I would want Joint Chiefs that support me. And I'm not saying blindly, right? I'm saying, hey, yeah,
Of
push
course.
back here or give advice here or disagree here. But at least holistically support me. So if
Right.
they could not, if there was policies and way forwards presented and they were not on board, they truly were like, let's just say the fact that we are cutting DI. And again, this, I'm not going to get into agree or disagree. It is what it is. This is the way we're moving forward as a military. If they legitimately say, I'm not on board with that, I'm not doing it, then I can respect it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people are losing sight of. Um, as you've served a long time, I'm now up there too. Uh, a lot of things you don't have to like,
Right.
right? Like a lot of things we don't like, but you have to
Yeah,
respect it.
facts.
And as you said, right? You get a new CO in, and they're trying to go one way. It's not blind loyalty, as we teach, right? In the mess and through the season stuff, it's not blind loyalty, but you gotta be loyal in there somewhere, because if you're not, now
Yes.
you're undermining. Now you're taking away. Now you are being the disruptor of a cohesive unit, right? So
Right.
again, and I wonder if that's going to come out in this transparency, that that maybe that's what it was. I think we've kind of covered General Brown enough, or
Yeah.
not. If not, then let us know down in the comments what we missed. Okay, but and I think overall we've both decided that there could be something there that we'll never be privy to unless SecDef keeps the transparency policy alive and well and gives us a real good debrief of what happened. Now, I think there's, when it comes, because everyone, so media is linking all of this to the DEI executive orders that President Trump, our commander in chief, put out. Okay, so that's like the main focus, because he put out executive orders, so all of this must be because of that. All right. But what also part of the messaging is war fighting first, right? Which again, if you're in the military, I cannot
Yeah.
anyone who's arguing against the war fighting ethos and war fighting first, and as you started with, right, and merit based, you better be the best to get this promotion. I don't know who's arguing against that, right? You may not like the guy who's saying it, but how can we argue against that? So with that in mind, I can understand, just based off of, like we were talking about, General Brown kind of making media appearances, speaking on things. I don't have a problem with it really, but I can kind of see where someone might be like, nope, that's not what I wanted from my general. Didn't like it then, and he's not going to serve with me now, right? He's out.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. I don't know where Admiral Franchetti lies in this. Okay. 40 years of service, cool, right? Like, you had to have some kind of track record to get appointed. I think, even though, as you said, the DEI stuff, that was the last presidency, they're pushing it. Marching orders are marching orders. Get it out. Cool, we do that. New marching orders, pivot, wipe it clean, move. I think her messaging of, Project 33, war fighting, everything like that, I think she was very on point with all of that. So that one is a little bit harder for me to understand right now as it is today, with very little information, because I thought, and even though some things I didn't like in like the culture of excellence and things like that, I thought when she was talking war fighting, that got me going, because I was like, this is what we need to be talking about every fucking day at quarters, right? Yeah. So are you feeling the same about that? Is that one a little harder for you to understand? Where you at, Kelvin?
Yeah, let me go back because I think you made some very valid points. I don't think there is a leader in the military, and I'm not just going to say the Navy, worth their salt, that does not believe that, one, we should prioritize warfighting, and two, that recognizes that we are probably not where we should be. So I don't think anybody should have a qualm with us saying we need to prioritize warfighting. Now, where I probably differ from you and maybe some others, I think we could still prioritize diversity. Maybe not as priority number one, but as a priority. But again, new CO, new regime. The concern for me with the CNO is I don't think that, at least publicly, from my view, that she had done things that would not have aligned her with exactly what this regime is asking its leaders to push. Like you mentioned, she was, even as I talked to her, even as I work on an unmanned aerial ISR platform, MQ-4 Charlie, right? It is an unmanned spy plane, long story short. She was very, very into what the war fighting capabilities were. She continued to message war. So that's where, again, I'm going to give grace and say maybe there's some more that we're not seeing. Maybe there was some insubordination that we did not see, that we're not privy to right now, because I believe, at least from what I saw, that the things that she was saying is aligning with exactly what this regime is requesting from its military.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, it sucks when we agree on the same thing, because it doesn't provide for much conversation. But like,
but at the end of the day, I think, let me say myself as well. This is an emotional, I'm not going to say decision, but there's going to be emotional reaction from, and again, because of the optics, whether or not we care about it, the members of the military care about it, right? You can, I'm sure anybody who's watching this, you can scroll down your Facebook page and you'll see viewpoints on both sides, because this is an emotionally charged decision. I believe SECDEF knew this, like I said, because I believe that's why he came out with the video beforehand. I believe he knew that this was going to cause some people to have some concerns. What I hope is that everybody allows enough grace. I hope nobody out there gets themselves in trouble. I hope everybody allows enough grace to say, let me hear him out. Again, that's kind of where I am with it as well. Maybe there was clear and blatant insubordination, let me hear him out. Where the concern is these were two trailblazers, 40 years of service. Many, and you attach it to the beginning of it. First this, first that, first this. The CNO, first female head of service chief for our Navy, right? So where I think it is vital that there is messaging. Remember what we just did in hiring her or promoting her to CNO is and this is that where we talk about representation. We told every female in the Navy, you can be the top position. There were a number of CNOs before her, all of them males. For the first time, we had a female CNO, which signaled, hey, you do what you're supposed to do, you do your job, you do it well, you can also ascend to CNO. Where this messaging gets important is to ensure that we say that it was not the fact that she was a female that caused this. It was something. It was whatever fill in the blank was, right? Because where a lot of people, whether it be, and again, when we talk about minority firings, where a lot of people are going to have concern naturally, your natural reaction to that is going to be under this regime. Can I ascend to the top position if I bust my tail, do everything I'm supposed to do? Will I get the opportunities that, is this almost the reverse of DEI where now I can ascend to the top position because that's reserved for a certain group of people, right? I think that messaging is important to clearly say these firings were not because of race, sex, and any of the other protected categories. This was because of whatever thing D, because that's where a lot of people right now are feeling disheartened. They're feeling disheartened. There are females that are feeling like, okay, are we back to the good old boy days in the Navy where these top positions will only be held by people who check off these boxes that are boxes that I can never check. These have nothing to do with war fighting. These have nothing to do with merit. These have nothing to do with qualifications or any of those things. They are things that I cannot control. Am I now, is there now a ceiling being placed on top of me? I think we need to be very clear about the messaging saying that that was not the case. The case was there was insubordination but we are not in any way limiting somebody who rises through the ranks, does everything they need to do, prioritizes war fighting and the things that we are looking for. Those people can still rise to the top. That is where we have to be. That's what I expect to hear in this transparency message that would allow me to get online because again, I have to go at quarters in front of a group of females, and I have to tell them, you can be whatever, whether that be the MCPON, the CNO, whatever. There is nothing stopping you from if you do, and that's what I've always felt. Again, obviously, black male CWO4. I have felt this organization has always allowed me to be the ceiling was my own work ethic, right? I could be whatever it is based off my own work ethic. There are many people that I can say, hey, you didn't ascend to where you thought. There are a lot, and this is in no way to discredit, but there are a lot of people I've seen retire as first classes, and I could point to exactly why. Your work ethic did not allow you to promote to chief, right? And that's not a diss. There's nothing wrong with retiring as a first class.
But for what you were saying, it's not. I'm gonna take it here, but it's not like I want to make it about this.
Okay.
We should not have a good old boys club, right? And when we say good old boys, we all know what we're talking about. Okay, and you might be watching this video and you might be thinking that's me. Trust me, I don't often fit into the good old boys club or any other fucking club because I just. The hair's too slick and, I got too much spice on my fucking chicken, right? But that being said, I don't fit into many other clubs either. I'm just the dude that's always just, you can't, and again, we've talked about this, right? The what are you question and how when you're asking someone, what are you, you're trying to put them into the good old boys club of whatever that person looks like in your mind so you could, set up your boxes however you want, okay? To me, that is all some form of prejudice and racism stuff, right? So
Absolutely.
I really, really, really want SECDEF to come out with that transparency and make it not about any of that, right?
Right.
I really want that to be like, this is how we're performing. This is where they were not performing. This is why they were let go, right? And this is how we're going to be moving forward, because I believe that everyone, like you're saying yourself, it's all about work ethic. And you know, you got to where you're at because of your work. No one of any kind of looking should sit back and ever have the question in their mind, did I only get here because I look whatever you look like? Same thing I tell Chief Selects. If some Master Chief or Senior Chief is telling you, hey, you know, I got you there, and you start questioning or giving it, yeah, you know, I wouldn't be a chief or I wouldn't be a officer if it wasn't for that person. You're giving so much of your own hard work away to somebody else when that's all they should be fucking doing anyways, is putting you on game, checking your package, helping you. Like that's free. This game in the Navy should be free, right?
Yes.
But if you're giving it away like that, or you're questioning like, damn, is it only because I'm this category, this demographic? All right, we got to call her. Hold on.
It's working.
All right, I'm not going to touch nothing.
All right, don't touch nothing. All right, so we're just we're already like 45 minutes into this, but we've talked about what we're talking about is the firings of the Joint Chief and Chief of Staff or Chief whatever. I get all my numbers. We're Admiral Franchetti and General Brown. That's what we're talking about, Brad.
Yeah. Chairman of the Joint Chief.
What is your opinion on it right now? Quick fire.
It didn't take long enough because they said they were going to do this before.
But what do you mean when you mean like the administration said they were going to fire people?
Yeah, I mean the current senior civilian in charge of the military wrote a book about this. He interviewed one of them. Said they have no place to be where they are. So my quick fire is, I'm surprised it took 4 weeks.
Oh, okay. But what we've been talking about is like, is it warranted, not warranted? Like overall, how is our, and most of the opinion also here is kind of like, you know, they serve at the pleasure of, you know, the commander in chief and the SECDEF. So it is a legal firing. A lot of people don't like it. We might need to respect it, but I
think, I think my personal opinion on this one is, unfortunately, both of those 2 4-stars were serving at a time when a different administrative one had a different message, and they were following the guidance that they were given at the time, which, however, just happens to be 100% opposite of what the administration has right now as far as priorities. So, pretty much they're getting fired because they were following the orders and guidance they were given. That's my opinion of it. Furthermore, I currently think as well the current civilian leadership in charge of the U.S. government, they do not have a good either understanding or respect for the Navy. They don't consider the Navy a combat arm because floating. We haven't really. You know, I get it. You're shooting $11 million missiles against in the Red Sea, but that's not as flashy as like, you know, I sent in a Marine infantry platoon and cleared out a couple hundred fighters, or I sent out a combat arms infantry unit and took out Al Anbar province of Iraq. I don't think that has the same equitability as far as that is a warfighter in the Navy side. The only time anyone in the senior civilian leadership ranks that we have right now has ever even had any kind of like public back and forthing with the Navy was Admiral McRaven, and they went back and forth in a negative way. And that's because he's kind of like the most prominent admiral probably the last 20 years in the Navy.
Because he had a trident, and a trident is flashy because you're a door kicker, pipe hitter.
And not only that, he was the senior officer in charge of the Osama bin Laden raid, Operation Neptune Spear. Yeah. So I think it's a combination of all of that. I think both of them were already walking on eggshells because they know. I mean, like I said, the Secretary of Defense has published a book that came out last year quoting by name one of these people saying they're going to go. And obviously he probably did. Yeah.
He named them both in his book. He did say General Brown needed to be fired. He also was not impressed with the CNO. I don't know if he's
You
fighting.
go ahead.
He's fighting the
Oh, go
world
ahead.
terrorism over there. No, but yeah. So he named them both in his book. And I would say I think you're exactly right. I think we said this previous. Unfortunately, they both served under the regime and followed the orders of the regime prior to, and that seems to be the thing. Again, if we're tying this back to DEI initiatives, that seems to be the thing that is going to that has caused their firings. The fact that they did what the past regime asked them to do. The unfortunate part here is, again, unless something comes out showing clear insubordination or an unwillingness to follow the requirements of this regime, the unfortunate part of that is they were following orders of those appointed over them, as we are required to do, and that may be their undoing.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I was sending him a message. Yeah,
I've
Brad.
done a couple of, I've done
Go ahead.
multiple, I've done a few recruiting tours that were over 10 years ago. And there was, going back to the President Obama's time, he also had given the direction, diversify the force.
Right.
Like, you used to be gold as a recruiter to go and find non-males and non-white males. And I would incentivize that by, in recruiting, it's by a point system.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
if you have a white male with an ASVAB score over 50, hypothetically say he is worth 1 point. But if you have an African American female that is over 50 on their ASVAB, that can be worth 16 points. So you are
Right.
incentivized to try to break out in performance to go and find that. That was over 10 years ago. If those going back, remember the Humgee Bumgee days.
Well,
And
so now serving at a recruiting command and having served with people that recruited here more than 30 years ago, that was a thing then too. Hey, yeah, Brad, I can hear all your background noise, so I'm gonna meet you in between. I sent you that message.
yeah,
If you want to turn on your camera, I just won't put you on camera at all. All right? You,
yeah, let me do
but
that.
yeah, just so you can give me a thumbs up when you want to interject or something. So I was like, my question about that stuff is that how we should be recruiting? Is that how we should be diversifying, or should it be a natural, just a natural flow of America's becoming more diverse every time, right? We could break it down to like interracial marriages, bridge diversity and things like that, right? As some of us, I think all three of us right now are in a interracial marriage. So should it be a
Yeah.
natural thing, or should we be out there looking for it, and that be a primary driving factor of manning?
Let me say
I
this.
don't
Let me
know.
say this. Oh, I think there are good points on both sides. I think we absolutely so as we started to push diversity, and I don't just mean as a military, but as a nation,
Mm-hmm.
there were reasons, right? When we were coming out of the 1960s Civil Rights Act, and we can talk about affirmative action and some of these other initiatives to push diversity. They were absolutely needed during that time. I think
Yes.
maybe now in 2025, maybe we can come away from some of those initiatives, right? Maybe because, like you mentioned, as a CWO4, if somebody told me today that you were commissioned, promoted because of my race, I would tell them I don't want it. I don't want it, right? If the merit of my work did not get me over the line, and there was somebody who was better than me, but I jumped them because I'm African American, I would not want that. Right? I think we are now at a place where we can say some of these initiatives can go away. I think we all naturally believe that diversity should be a part of everyday life, right? That, hey, if I walked into a Navy 10 years from now and everybody was white males, we'd probably all agree that, there's something we need to do there. So I think because we naturally do that, then everything should be based on merit, right? The
Yeah.
50 as that white man should gain the recruiter the same amount of points as the 50 as that black female.
Yeah.
I think we're in a place where diversity should happen more naturally. I think we should still have some checks and balances. Maybe some organizations still looking at, hey, are we still recruiting and our numbers maintaining in terms of diversity. But in everything we do, we should be looking for our best and brightest, whether that be white males or black females or whatever. And that is how I think we clear up a lot of the issues we've had with diversity, right? Because there was a pendulum swing from, hey, we have no diversity and we need to open up opportunities to
Yes.
minorities, to now where it feels like, and I can understand it, if I was a white male, I can also see where somebody may say, maybe I haven't been afforded opportunities because I don't represent diversity.
Absolutely. Brad, you got anything? Maybe. We'll come back to him. I think that's right. I think that's Brad, did you have anything to respond to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree 100% with what he says. I think there was a time, 50s, 60s, 70s, even up to probably the 90s, that those kind of actions were needed. But I really just don't think in our generation it's needed anymore. I've never once in my career of almost 20 years looked at a dude and said, that's a black guy, I'm not going to help him. Or that's a girl, I'm not going to help her. Like, I just don't even think that way. And I just don't think these kind of programs, like you said, maybe there is some sort of checks and balance. What that is, I don't know. But I just don't think you need it anymore, because after doing 2 recruiting tours and 2 different demographics and 2 completely different parts of the world, diversity is already naturally here in America. Like, you're going to get a diverse force because we recruit from every zip code in America.
Yeah.
You're going to get that. But I don't think it was just the DEI stuff why why one of these firings happened as well. The Navy's had a few black eyes the last couple of years, and I think they're going to use that as kind of icing on top of it too, unfortunately for her.
Yeah, I think with it happening naturally, and as the half white guy in the group, it can definitely, and I don't even fucking like to acknowledge the colors of things like that, right? But like when you see comments, right, on social media posts about this stuff, and
Yeah.
look, like Kelvin, I'm sure you can relate to this, right? 'Cause it makes you feel a certain way, like, yo, why are you attacking me, right? And I think there's a part of it where it's one side now feels like, well, now it's your turn. It's kind of like we're getting our get back, and it's like, how are you dragging me into it? I've only been around for 39 years, right? Like, why would I be dragged into, or why would I not be afforded the opportunity because of, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and things that happen? So, again, as we've progressed, it's kind of one of those, like, we're progressing so much that I think maybe a lot of people feel that I'm not even talking about president, I'm talking about nationally here, right? Society. Over the last 10 years, we might have started regressing because of some of these things that are getting put out there and these initiatives and things like that, where it's like, hold on, I thought we were at a point where, like, everything was kind of being fair across the board. There's still pockets here and there and problems. I think there always will be, right? Especially for those that want them to be, right? It will always be a driving factor. It will be, some people love to put it front and center, right, to continue to drive that conversation and really, I think, a message of hate between whatever fucking side you're on. It doesn't matter. But I think we've kind of regressed in the last 10 years of bringing it back, flipping it to the other side of the coin, but it's the same coin, right? And so I don't know. I haven't liked it very much. And like, if I don't like it, like, I'm sure other people don't like it. Someone can sit there and be like, "That's what you fucking get, you fucking whitey. You fucking been doing it for the last 200 years or some shit." And I just sit back and I just laugh. But like, you guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, you feel me a little bit?
Well,
Maybe?
yeah. Let me say this. The facts are we are the most diverse and diversity accepting in American history.
Yeah.
We talked about the media before, but there were factions. Remember that racism and things that happened in the 60s and 50s and in the beginning of the United States, those things in a for-profit media fail.
Yes.
So if I say white cop does this to black man, that is going to draw clicks. That's going to draw headlines. That's going to draw outrage. So now, racism, and I am not in any way, again, as a black male, saying that I believe racism does not exist. What I do believe is that there are factions on both sides of this coin, politically, racially, in any way you want to spin it, that want to continue to push this divide.
Yes.
I believe we are, in terms of diversity, in a very good place. Just like Brad said, I believe you can look around the Navy and most leaders and most people are mentoring people of different races, different sexes, talking to, leading different people of different races. I would say most leaders that I've worked with, 95% of the leaders that I've worked with as a black male, white males, females, or whatever, have supported me, have guided me, have mentored me, right? I do not, as I kind of look at my career, a majority of my true mentors were not other black men, right? I've had mentors and these are people that truly cared for me and pushed me. So yes, I think the divide now is much more make believe because it's agenda pushing, because there's still profit in somebody saying, hey, you are different than Josh. So when this comes on, you need to be outraged. They're almost outrage baiters saying be outraged. And this is why, back to your point real quick, Josh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You mentioned you don't think SECDEF should address the fact that it was a female and a black male, and I understand. And I think in a perfect world, I agree. We should just talk about the merits of why these firings happen. However, I think the optics in this are going to outweigh. And for the SECDEF to then, and again, at the end of the day, we follow orders. The SECDEF can come out and say, hey, I fired him because he was a black male and a white female. Y'all suck it up. And our only option is either get out or suck it up, right? He has that. But if you are trying to unite the force and have everybody, I think you have to address it. I think you have to, in some way, say, hey, this was not because of any other of the designators. This was simply based on the merit or insubordination or whatever other reason. I think you have to address the elephant in the room where we talk about, again, three minority firings. You have to address the fact that this was not necessarily tied to the fact that they were minorities.
Okay. All right. Like I like it. And when I say that, I think it should be like a brief like footnote, right?
Yeah.
Like it cannot be the focus of that message of whatever he's going to say, right? Because that's definitely where I think we're going to get lost in it, and it brings more attraction to it. Do we feel that for us in the military, can we rise above the clickbait and the divisiveness that the media is trying to push, right? That politics is trying to push? Because again, we're supposed to be apolitical, and this kind of, we'll get into the new, the new potential Joint Chief, right? That is retired, which is crazy. It had me scratching my head. Retired, and I read an article that someone posted about him wearing a fucking MAGA hat during a visit or something, right?
Yes.
So, and again, it's one of those, I don't agree with that, right? I straight up, like, I can say, again, if he becomes the boss, I'll follow the orders for 3 more years until I can retire, right? All good. But I don't agree that you disobey the rules and regulations of putting on that, donning that hat, doing this, in uniform, right? And that's why so much, everyone knows I'm big time against the influencer, reels, TikToks, this of people in uniform. That's why I never do this show in uniform. I have some reels out of me of having fun on the ship in uniform and stuff, right? And that's just kind of shipboard fun with me and the guys, girls, whoever's there, right? But I don't do this show in uniform because I don't want it to be tied to my uniform. Right, I want these to just be Josh Moore, the Bravo Zulu. This is what we're sharing. This is what happens in the military. This is service members talking about how things like this impact us, how we think about it, how we're gonna work through it. So when I read this stuff, it kind of just makes me scratch my head. Like, why is this guy? And we could point to maybe it's because he's a fan, this and that. I don't agree with it. hey,
Yeah.
do I have to? I don't like it. Do I have to respect it and follow the orders? Yes, but I don't like it.
Let me say, and again, this is we take it however, the first he would be again if confirmed. Hello.
You good? You good? Go.
If confirmed, he would be the first three-star to ever take chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. He would be the first person, the second person in chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff history to never have been a service chief or a combatant commander. And literally, the MAGA hat thing is alarming, right? So what you're saying, and again, what I've always believed is, especially when we get to the higher levels, it's apolitical, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to know the political affiliation of our Joint Chiefs, our CNO, our MCPON, any of those high positions, because all I want to know is you care about service and what's doing what's right
Yeah.
and war fighting and those type of things. The fact that one, this was a shared story that, hey, this guy who's retired, right? This is disrespectful to every four-star that is currently serving in the military, to include every joint chief, to include your vice joint chief, vice chairman, I'm sorry. This is I'm pulling a three-star who was retired off the bench to make them the senior member of the military in whole. And again, not to say that this guy, again, to become a three-star, you had to be an exceptional leader. I am sure that we can look at his record and it is exceptional. But again, in the world that I don't think that, as we are talking about the optics, as we are talking about this should be apolitical positions, this is what this is what we all would want. The optics of this are horrible. This isn't even the white male thing. This is
There's other
guy
people
who is
still
a
serving.
three-star who does not meet the normal wickets of the position and was retired, gets the position because he put on a hat that he should not have ever put on while in uniform, supporting the president.
And it's not about, and B, I'm gonna let you jump in here, but it's not even about what the hat says or affiliated with. It is, you should not be putting on anything political at all.
Right.
Left, right, Dem, rep. It does not matter. Libertarian, motherfucking whatever. It does not matter. You should not be doing that, right? There's rules against that. B, I'm gonna let you jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's definitely a double standard. If you remember a few years ago, it went pretty viral as well. There was a senior cadet at West Point after he was like in the band or something, but after one of their games or ceremonies or whatever, he took a picture of a very prominent Cuban communist regime leader. The Secretary of the Army himself flew to West Point and kicked that kid out of the military like 3 days later.
It was like in his hat or something, right?
It was he was wearing his undershirt under his uniform.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I remember. Okay, yep.
And that dude was out of the service like 72 hours later.
Yeah.
So it's a double standard. So how are you going to hold how are we going to hold people accountable if that's the leader doing that? It's going to become a very big dilemma.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think a bigger portion of this that's not being talked about, just because it's not as clickbaity, it's not as well understood. Every single senior JAG officer in the military was also fired.
Yes.
Go ahead. Talk to us about that. What do you know about that? Not inside information, but like what have you heard?
I don't know any of these people personally, but I know if you've ever been an investigating officer, that is not a quick process. That is not something you just open and shut and you're done in 10 minutes unless you just completely didn't care at all about any of what you were told to do or the people you're investigating, which that's not the way you do that. But it's just going to continue to it's going to be hard to strengthen and unify and come together quickly. It's going to continue to have chaos if you're going to continuously fire lawyers, because it's impossible to defend anything if you don't have a representative. It's that simple. Like if there's only one golden rule I've learned in my 30s, representation matters at anything in life, business, legal, tax, whatever. a representative matters. And what they did is they removed all senior representatives in a legal forum. And let's face it, in our democracy, court is the last battleground within the United States. And that's all gone. And that's just the beginning. So I think that's probably, to be honest, I think that's going to have more impact. I really don't think it matters. CNO, chairman of Joint Chief, whoever it is, they're going to find someone. The military will go on. We all have been in long enough to know that. You think you're super critical, you check out, the next week things move on. Yeah, I think whoever gets CNO, whoever gets the Joint Chief, they get confirmed, all the backstory on that. And, and I think I know why they picked him. Yeah, I know he did the bag of hat thing, but he also has a very storied special operations career. I think that's the kind of like macho masculinity warfighter they're looking for on paper. It's like, this is our leader. But be that as it may, I think the main problem that's actually going to happen if they continually fire everyone who's going to be an inspector general. Because most people don't know what an inspector general is. I would say 90%, if you went up to any rank, any person in any branch anywhere in the world and said, can you tell me what your inspector general does? They're going to look at you like you asked them something in Mandarin. Yeah, they're not going to know what that is. There's a lot of officers that don't even know what an inspector general is.
So talk to us about that then, B. Like, there's another podcast. I forget the exact name of it, but they're talking about some of that. What is the impact to firing all the senior JAGs? Who are they representing?
Okay, perfect example. Recent news that's in the Navy right now is aircraft carrier in the Med. For whatever reason, we don't know the facts yet because the investigation probably hasn't even really started yet.
Yeah,
had a collision. They had to pull in and do repairs. As we all know, during our career, somebody of that caliber, the CEO got fired as soon as the boat pulled in. Yeah. They flew out a CEO from another carrier that just completed deployment to take command until they can figure it out. So when we say like, until they can figure out, what does that actually mean to figure it out? That means an investigation. That means that another senior officer has to, on writing, by law, by constitutional title law, has to designate an investigating officer. In this case, it's probably going to be a 1-star since the command was an 06. Maybe even a 2-star because they're going to have to be able to essentially tell that strike group commander what's going to happen and what permissions they knew. That way they don't feel like they're bullying anyone or they're stepping on anyone's show. So if that investigating officer comes out, probably with a team of 3 to 20 subject matter experts in different fields, but if say that person halfway through that investigation, the preliminary report, say Fleet Forces, right, or Commander Naval Air Forces, since it's a carrier, says, hey, I want a preliminary report in 30 days. I want this thing formally done in 90 days, ready for congressional review. No problem. Let's say that 30 days in, that investigating officer, in conjunction with their JAG, i.e. their Inspector General representative, they write it together so it's legal, but it's also factual. They give that preliminary report to Commander Naval Air Forces and says, hey, this is what we found. The OOD wasn't even qualified, and the person who is the TAO in charge of combat information, he actually was in the wardroom eating a quesadilla because he didn't want to be there. So that's our initial things, right? Well, and by the way, the CO, he was asleep. Well, say that Commander Naval Air Force is like, dude, when I was in 05 in command, like this guy was a hotshot, JG pilot. I really like this guy. I don't like this is shaking out. You know what? Investigating officer and JAG, you guys are fired. I'm going to bring in 2 more guys, and we'll see if I can get someone. Now you're getting someone to paint the narrative you want. Yeah. Just like Kelvin said right now in mainstream media, the news has gotten away from telling us facts and letting us make our own opinions about how we feel about things. They try to tell us how we should feel and give us the facts that represent that. So by firing continuous JAG officers, what you're setting things up to be is you may not be getting full facts. You may be getting facts that paint the narrative of what we want the outcome to look like. That's why I'm saying if you fire JAGs, that's a really big problem because you may lose that ability of transparency.
Yeah. Even though that's what we have heard from SECDEF of them providing us. So I guess that's the other thing. And I forgot, thanks for bringing that up, is that was also a very small subtext of everything happening, right? And again, a lot of us, me, first one to raise their hand, I don't know shit about that, right? JAG, you're talking to them, it's probably not a good thing or something, right? So yeah, That's very interesting. Yeah, I'll just say that's very interesting. Kelvin, you got anything about that?
No, no, no. And I think he is very right. The concern becomes for what, right? As we continue to talk about transparency, as we're talking about this with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, we're talking about this with the CNO. It's almost like I hope that doesn't get buried. I think there needs to be some transparency there as well. Why did we fire a bunch of every services judge advocate? I think that needs to be discussed. And I hope this isn't some, I'm going to give you a big headline so I can bury the small headline type
Yeah,
situation where
yeah,
this never gets talked about again, because that should
Yep.
be very alarming. And again, in terms of transparency, which the SECDEF has promised us, we should get some answers on that too. And I think what's going to happen is we're not going to, because we're going to be so focused on the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the CNO.
yeah, yeah.
If it stops there.
Right?
What do you mean?
Um,
If the firings?
yeah, who's to say this are the only 4-stars they want to fire? But the SecDef said something. I think it was in his all hands you shared a while back, like first or
Yeah,
second week on the job. He said something that was very alarming to me, and I think it was I'm not saying alarming, maybe it's a bad word. I think it was a good foreshadow.
yeah.
He said, we won World War II with 7 4-stars. We currently have
Oh yeah,
41.
yeah.
I
That's been
think that was a shot across the bow.
mm-hmm.
That you guys, I'm coming for you guys.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I think what I read from that is there's bloat, right?
Oh,
There's
100%.
there's a lot of bloat in the promotions. There's a lot of bloat in jobs and just creating places and positions to continue. And this, I've said this before, to continue just to move people up because they're good people, right? Sure, they
Well,
might be
yeah, that
great at their job, but like I think there's a lot of bloat in there, and that might be what he's speaking to. Of like, hey, we're gonna streamline this. We're gonna cut this back. We're gonna get down to the absolute essential of what we need, right? And if we don't need it, then we're gonna get rid of it, and we're only gonna have the promotion to 3 and 4 for where we absolutely need it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And something that's, I think we have something like 220 flag officers in the Navy, 240, somewhere in there. I think we have 9 4-stars and 200 and something flag. And for comparison, the Marine Corps, just because I have a Marine Corps background as well, the Marine Corps has 2 4-stars. That's it. Their commandant, and then whoever it gets a combatant command. That's it. There's only technically 1 4-star billet in the Marine Corps, and that's their commandant. Everyone else is 3 or below. Yeah, but the Marine Corps always has at least 1, maybe even 2 combatant commands, because let's face it, if you have a Marine resume versus a bomber pilot resume or a SWO resume, they're probably going to take the Marine and be like, that's the military person.
Yeah, that's the warfighter.
Yeah.
That's the warfighter, right? So I think that's definitely alarming. And you mentioned something that I've personally seen, because let's just say I have a lot of staff experience. I've seen many times where people are promoted because they need the bodies to fill the billets at a higher board, not at a higher unit. But, this is a second tour department head. He couldn't, he probably couldn't, he would fuck up making a cup of coffee. But on paper, we can't say that, because we need him to be one of the 50 people going into the XO board next year, so we can say we found the best and fully qualified. Out of the 50, it's hard to pick 40 XOs if there's not 40 candidates there.
Oh, right. And you can wind that all the way down the ranks, right? I am certain we've all been in a position where we've had only 3 people that deserve EPs, but we're going to give 7 because we got 7. And so, hey, these guys don't deserve an EP, but we got 7 EPs, so find 4 more.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Isn't that
the only time I would say that I've seen that not happen is when you see boards come out and it's like, hey, we have 72 quotas. GSE is a big one, right, for chief, because it's always like really high. So it's like, okay, the board convenes and it's like, okay, we have 72 GSEC quotas. Board list comes out, and it's like they picked 57. So they sent back. There's 20 people they said aren't good enough.
Good.
Yeah, so I'm going to say I have never been to a board, but I will tell you from talking to people at boards that they have said that it is very hard to give a billet back. It is very hard. Like, and they've said we've ranked out and we've said, hey, this is the cutoff of, and what I'm mostly talking about here, obviously, as a prior chief is chief quotas. Hey, they've said, hey, these are the cutoff of the people that should make chief. Right? You've given me 100 billets. I only got 40 that are actually people that we think should make chief, and it becomes, well, you got to fill the other 60.
You have to explain it. Whatever you have to brief why you cannot fill the other 60. Which to me, that should be a pretty easy short brief to the 06 or the Admiral. They're not qualified. We've now spent the last 3 weeks in here looking at these evals, these records, right? The 10 Master Chiefs, whoever the hell it is, whatever community, right? They're not 100 qualified E6s to be promoted and selected to chief.
Right.
That, I mean, like, what else do we need to say about that? But I think that's, again, if there's bloat at the 0403, it's because there's bloat down here at the junior ranks. Again, I've gone into a chief board for first classes and said, we have 3 EPs, small command. I go, well, we have 3 available, but we only got 2 sailors that are EPs. We all know that.
Right.
And motherfuckers look at me crazy because I'm saying somebody is not an EP. And then you get personal feelings involved because it's their sailor. And I'm like, bro, it doesn't matter if it's your sailor or not. You've done a shit job developing them. They're not an EP. If they're going to make chief, they're going to make it chief with the MP. It don't matter.
Mm-hmm. And what I've always said, and I say this from second classes going to first class, or first class going to chief. My number one criteria is, would you want, and I'm going to say this as an officer, right, in DH meetings. I will tell the other DHs, would you want that person to be your LCPO? Is that the person? Because if we're giving them an EP, what we're saying is select them right now. Yep. Would you want that? No, there's still some. Exactly.
There should be no hesitation.
So that person should. But again, and let me say this: I have never, and let me say, I've been a khaki now for almost 20 years. I have never been in a board where we willingly gave back promotion opportunities. Never. I've been in many boards where a number of us have thought we don't have the number of people that actually merit being an EP or an MP or what, but I have never been in a board where we've actually given back EPs or an MPs.
Yep. B, what do you got?
No, it's funny you mentioned that. Just trying to get back to the flag comments is, our flags don't have fit reps.
Right.
What level does the fit rep stop? 06?
After 06.
06.
Yeah.
So after 06, it's purely 2 things: reputation and who you know, the networking. That's it. Because there are no, at that level in the game, let's face it, you better have rubbed some elbows at Millington along your way. You better have rubbed some elbows in DC along the way. And you better have rubbed some elbows in the major training hubs of your designator along the way, whether it's, whether it's Pensacola or whether it's Groton or whether it's Rhode Island, depending on your TICOM. You better know some people and have crossed paths with the right people. So I think it's interesting that, fit reps for the common sailor, the common officer, those are live and die. But after you're selected for that star, after that, it don't matter. It's about who you know and how many cocktail parties have you been to at the right time. And
let me say,
maybe there needs to be some transparency on that side of it too. Is like, okay, because I've sat down in in offices with senior 06s in different communities and them venting because they were in zone, and I just happened to be there because I had that respect and relationship, and they break it down. It's like, so you're telling me this guy, and you go back and look, and it's like, okay, who's the board list? Okay, it was chaired by this 3-star, and it had these 10 1-stars in it. Okay, and out of the 2, say, surface flag selects that got picked this cycle, okay, one of them, how interesting. If you look at the 3-star or this other 1-star that was on the board, they had 3 commands together.
Well, and let me weigh in on this. 2 stories. I had an '06 CO of an LHD going to the Pentagon to be, and all the jokes of the person who gets somebody's coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And me and my captain were really cool. And I said, man, coming off a ship where you are the guy, that has to be rough. And he said exactly that. He said, I know for me to make admiral, there's not enough people that know me. I need to go to the Pentagon to go rub those,
To,
because he said
to serve all the coffee he can.
in that room, question number one is he, hey, who knows this guy? It's not, let me look at his record, let me look at his fit reps. It's who knows this guy. Second story,
Mm-hmm.
in Iraq, I won't name the names, but a 1-star general worked for a 4-star. A 1-star, and again, what we would consider probably work. He was doing work that was not necessarily in lines with being a 1-star. And again, had a really good relationship with him. And I said, man, sir, everywhere else you go, you'd be the man. Here you're doing, staff. Hey, let me make sure the 4-star is good work. Isn't that a little demeaning? He said, yes, but that guy will be the reason that I put on 2-star or 3-star. So
Mm-hmm.
I am willing to demean, I mean, I don't want to say demean myself, but do work that is not necessarily normally indicative of the rank, because I need that guy to go in a room and vouch for me. And they say at that star level, and again, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories. I'm just saying what I've heard from an '06 and an '07, that it is much more about who in that room can vouch for me. And if there are a number of people, oh yeah, hey Josh, oh yeah, he's one of us. It's like the mafia. You know what I'm saying? Hey, it's not, let's look at his fit rep. Hey, has he checked the wickets? Oh, he's a really good. No, it's, hey, Josh, yeah, he's one of us.
No,
That's
100%. And I can only speak for the Marine Corps and the Navy side. I don't know how the Army and the Air Force, quote unquote, politics work at that level. That's called the boardroom level. The executive level is the joke they
Yeah,
use. And but you can tell after an '06 command tour what his next command assignment is. Well, is the tip of whether or not this guy he may not be one of us, but he's almost one of us. If you
right.
leave, and let's say hypothetically you're a SWO and you leave your '06 command tour, whether you were a Commodore or a cruiser CO, and your tour is to go and be the N57 Charlie at Pac Fleet, that is the executive level saying you're not one of us. You didn't make the cut. But if you
Right.
leave there and you get to go and be the Op Nav Charlie executive assistant, yeah, you're almost one of us. And then there's 3 or 4 coveted billets that pretty much says to that board, he is one of us. I'm vouching
You're
for him
good.
out of Millington, out of the Porch 41 shop. You're good. If he leaves his '06 command tour and he's going to go be the TICOM
Yeah.
chief of staff, if he's going to go be the CO of SWAS, or if he's going to be the upcoming '06 captain detailer, that fit rep right there from the PERS 4 officer that slated him to one of those 3 billets, that is the tip to the next flag board that says he's one of us. He's vetted.
Or she.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting on or she.
Just
Well,
want to throw
Or
it in there.
she. Or she.
Yeah.
or she, but I can't think in the last several years that I saw a she.
Yeah. So we'll double back to what started this. So when SECDEF gave that foreshadowing, right, that we won World War II with, a handful of 4-stars, 2 handfuls maybe, right? After having that last, 15-minute discussion about it, do we have too many 4-stars? 3 stars? Do we too many stars at all in the sky? And we are bloated and we need to cut down?
I think the quick answer is maybe, right? And I think that was a shot across the bow. One, probably to say, hey, all you 4-stars, you either get in line with the new regime and our priorities, or we have no problem cutting that and making that a different billet. And I don't want to say getting rid of you, but hey, I believe that was a very underhanded shot across the bow to every 4-star. But as Brad said, it may just be indicative of the future, right? There may be an actual force realignment to say that we will only have this many 4 stars in the military. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that coming here very soon.
Yeah.
So the only problem with that is that's not something that is controlled by the executive level. That is controlled
Right.
by the legislative level. That Congress
Right.
sets the flag billet mandates. So if they do
Agreed.
that, I mean, once again, we can get into that whole battle of executive order versus title
Yes.
law, and that's where that will fall. Now, if they say, hey, we have 9 4-star billets, but by direction, you're only going to fill 4 of them until further notice, then it's a short-term stopgap, but it's going to screw up flag promotions in 5 or 10 years. But to my short answer, my personal feeling, not on behalf of the Navy, my personal feeling, I don't think it matters. I think if we had a 3-star doing a 4-star job, then I think the job would still get done.
Yeah.
Because the
Right.
staffs that support that, whoever's at the head of the table is still going to be there. Still going to be grinding out emails and PowerPoints. And it's going to be the same decisions regardless of who's in the seat.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, if you want to look at it and really make the force better, I think you should do some trading. Okay, so 1 4-stars billet equal, monetary wise, that equals 10 05 billets that you could get back into the inventory. Okay, make that trade.
Yes.
And when you say that, you mean like, all right, if we're scrapping that 04 billet, then that means like we need to promote 5 04s up to 05, like screen them for command and make more 05s.
Well, I mean, it's hard. So the Navy, I learned this once again from the Marine Corps, right? So the Navy has a problem. We have too many 05 commands.
Yeah.
Afloat commands. When I was with the Marines, I think in the Marine Corps, infantry alone, they only have like 40 05 infantry battalion commands in the world. I was like, dude, we have 40 05 command billets in LCS in San Diego.
Yeah, on the waterfront. Yeah.
So I think the Navy really has a problem with the 05 level of command in the surface world. I don't think the aviation has that problem, but I definitely think the surface level has it. So when I say trade that off, I'm not saying promote more 05s. I'm saying, maybe we make a lot of our, maybe we make some of our 4-star billets, 3-star billets until you're at the, like the Pac Fleet or Fleet Forces level. Like that's probably, maybe from that on. Now let's just say we reverse it. We make 3rd Fleet and 7th Fleet 2-star levels. Things like that, because that still makes it where your operational commanders, your ESGs and your strike group commanders are still 1-stars. There's still alignment there. There's not a 1 to 3 gap. I mean, I honestly think that would be fine. It's just what are we getting out of it? Are we getting more chiefs?
What's about it?
Are we getting more 03s? Are we getting more warrants? What are we getting out of it? I think that's the really discussion point.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Well, guys, we've been going an hour and a half. It's all been great. We covered a lot of the breaking news about the firings. I think we talked really well about that and everything. In the end, again, as I started with, right, they're very high positions in D.C., okay? The trickle-down effect will take a long time. You might not ever even notice wherever you are at, sailor, on the deck plate. And I'd recommend that you focus in on the deck plate and where you're at. All right. I know there's people posting and screaming at the sky about it Friday night at the wee hours of the night, right? And they didn't get their fucking 3M boards closed out before they went home at 1600 on fucking Friday. Okay. So if that was you, like, get off the fucking keyboards and get back into your 3M boards. Okay. Like, straight up. Okay. So a lot of times we reach out and we think about a lot more stuff than we should be thinking about when we should be thinking about what's impacting you and your sailors at your local command on them deck plates. Okay. So I'll just end it with that. Kelvin, B, I appreciate you guys coming on. Just stand by and we'll cut out right after this. And I think, this is definitely one of them shows, people, as I bring this up right here, right, where I got to let you know that this information on the Bravo Zulu podcast is only of myself and my guests, their personal opinions. They do not reflect the DOD, the DON, or those of the respected institutions and organizations that we are a part of. These are just military people sharing an opinion. out of uniform, in accordance with social media instruction and everything else. All right, so don't come for us, don't come for me, because I'll write a book about it. God damn it. All right, hey, but that's all we got. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget to give us the finger, bing, and give us a like. All right, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it with some other people. Let us know what you're thinking down in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.